Hi, everybody. Welcome to this week's edition of our California Dreams Technical Seminar Series. Today, we are very lucky to have Elahe Ahmadi speaking. Elahe comes to us kind of in transition from UCLA, where she's been an associate professor and doing very important work in the hub, and now taking on a new position at UCSB. And UCSB is very lucky to have her. And she had come from UCSB, where she was a postdoc prior to her first faculty appointment at the University of Michigan. Professor Ahmadi does work in the design, fabrication, and characterization of novel ultra-wide bandgap materials and devices for high power and high frequency applications. So very well aligned with the goals of the California Dreams Hub. She's won many awards, including the Young Investigator Award from both the Office of Naval Research and OSR, National Science Foundation Career Award, DARPA Young Faculty Award, and others. So very well recognized for the good and important work that she's doing, both within our hub and in other venues. So please take it away, Elahe.
Thanks so much, Steve, for the kind introduction. I'm excited to be back at UCSP, where basically GaN technology, both optoelectronics and electronics, was pioneered and successfully proliferated into industry. And my goal is to be basically, I'm happy to be part of this effort and now expand this into, novel nitrides for new applications like in, quantum and AI. So today I'm going to talk about like accelerating technology development through materials and device co-design. And let me also use my pointer. And before that, I'd like to thank my group members, past and current, who have basically basically generated all this data. And especially thank the measurement support we have received over the years from like Mishra Group, especially Matt, Christopher Klein, Mortanmi, and Boyu. And also, I'd like to thank the funding agencies that actually make this work possible. Um, my group has large effort currently on basically next generation of nitrogen polar GaN HIMS, and we are also work on emerging ultra wide bandgap materials. We've been working a lot on hybrid MBE of aluminum gallium oxide, as well as nitrogen polar aluminum nitride and algan, and the heterogeneous integration in nanoscale between these two material systems. But today, specifically, I want to focus on the first part, which fits well with the current project that we are also working on in California Dreams, and within California Dreams. And that's on nitrogen polar GaN HIMS. I'll discuss basically the work we've been doing on developing the material and the new dielectrics that we are working on. And then this basically enabled first demonstration of RF power measurements on E-mode nitrogen polar GaN HIMS, and as well as demonstrating D-mode nitrogen polar GaN HIMS on a much simpler EPI structure with a novel dielectric. Um, and basically, I believe that this code design, material device code design is essential. It will give us all the knobs that we need to basically enhance the performance and make new devices. For those who may be less familiar with GaN, nitrides are a very interesting, unique material system. that basically covers the whole a wide range of band gaps, starting from zero point 0.7 electron volt for indium nitride, which covers IR, up to aluminum nitride that is 6.2 electron volt and has um, um, applications for like UV light. And then this whole range is actually direct bandgap material. And in addition to that, both P-type and N-type are available for nitrides, which is not always the case for every material system. And the alloying between aluminum, indium, gallium, and nowadays novel materials like scandium nitride and all that, yttrium allows this formation of heterostructures and devices with new functionalities. If we look at gallium nitride, the unique property that it has is this large spontaneous and piezoelectric polarization. And that's because like when you look at the gallium nitride bond, there is this spontaneous polarization in the bond, and in the unit cell, because these don't cancel out, there is a net polarization in the unit cell. Now, if we look at gallium nitride, and nowadays basically almost all the optoelectronic devices, they are made on gallium polar. So if you look at the crystal structure of gallium nitride, and one side, because of this asymmetry, basically on this polarization is opposite, and the one side is actually terminated by gallium atoms, and then if you flip it and look at the other side, it's terminated by nitrogen atoms. And these two surfaces have very different, of course they have different polarity, but they have different surface reactivity, and also growth dynamics of these two are very different. Now the devices that we see, like the gallium nitride HEMTs that are in 5G base stations, and like most of like the all the blue LEDs and stuff that we see commercially available, have been fabricated on this gallium polar side. But and before going into that, also I wanted to say that gallium nitride, because of its wide bandgap material, has is attractive for high power, high frequency applications, especially as we go to higher frequencies where the atmospheric loss is high. We want to be able to transmit higher powers. And gallium nitride, because of its wide band gap, because of also it has high electron mobility, has been a very attractive candidate for this application. And that's why we see basically, as I mentioned earlier, in 5G base stations today, there are all gallium nitride HEMTs. Now, as I mentioned earlier, all these gallium nitride HEMTs that are commercially available today are on gallium polar. And if you look at a simple gallium polar GaN HEMT structure, the most simple one is basically you have the gallium nitride GaN, and you cap it with like 20-30 nanometer of aluminum gallium nitride, which is a larger bandgap material. And because of the polarization charges that I talked about earlier, we get this a positive net positive polarization charge at this interface, where the two-dimensional electron gas forms. And now, instead of this AlGaN, which is the large bandgap material, you can look at other alternatives like indium aluminum nitride. People have looked at, and most recently, scandium aluminum nitride is being explored as the barrier material. Now, if we flip the substrate and we use the nitrogen polar side of it, now the polarization charges are opposite. So if you just cap it with AlGaN, you won't get any two-dimensional electron gas here. And so what in a nitrogen polar HEMT structure, we grow the gallium nitride channel on top of the larger bandgap material. So basically this is the back barrier, and the two-dimensional electron gas forms here in front of the algan. Now, in the similar, and this is both in gallium polar and nitrogen polar, you would want a large bandgap material for the barrier for charge two-deck confinement. We are interested in large polarization charge so that we can get larger two-deck density. And so, as I said, in this schematic, I'm showing algan, but we can replace this with indium aluminum nitride, aluminum nitride, gallium nitride digital barrier that I'm going to talk about, and also scandium nitride that we are working on. Now, nitrogen polar, because of this inherent back barrier that it has some unique advantages, like it gives better two-deck confinement, reduced distance between gate and two-deck, and we can achieve low resistance ohmic contacts to nitrogen polar GaN HEMS. And then it also enables deep recess design for surface trap passivation, which I'll discuss more later. But basically, Professor Mishra, a few months ago from UCSB, he had a nice talk on UCSB's work on nitrogen polar GaN HEMS and the basically state of the art, results that they have. If we look at the device structures that they have been using, and this is basically mostly grown on silicon carbide or sapphire. And then because these are grown by MOCVD, and I'll talk more about that, but it needs miscut substrate so that for nitrogen polar to be able to grow by MOCVD. If you look at the structure, there is this algan back barrier that if you zoom in and look at the structure itself is relatively complicated. We have silicon doping, then we have degraded algan, and then 10 nanometer of silicon doped algan, and then the 0.7 nanometer aluminum nitride. Then there is the gallium nitride channel, algan cap, and then gallium nitride cap, which is for the RF RFDC dispersion, basically, to control that, to control dispersion. And this is a standard deep recess nitrogen polar GaN HEMT structure that is being used today. And they have demonstrated this is like older data from 2024, even like, better results have been demonstrated, but it shows that basically nitrogen polar outperforms gallium polar at these higher frequencies. Now, what we have focused on in my group was basically, first of all, to enhance the technological acceptance of nitrogen polar GaN HEMS by trying to simplify the epi design and also the dielectric that is being used. One thing I forgot to mention is that in this standard nitrogen polar GaN HEMS, MOCVD silicon nitride is being used as the gate insulator, and which is a relatively high temperature deposition technique. Like these dielectrics are deposited at 700, 800 C. So my goal has been to basically see if we can simplify the epi design. And the other thing was to push the limits, go to higher frequencies, higher power, and also expand applications and see if we can do E-mode devices with nitrogen polar using new dielectrics. So, and for this, these are basically the four main things that we have focused on. First of all, we are using bulk GaN with low dislocation on axis. We don't need miscut by MBE. Our group is focused on MBE growth, and so we don't need the miscut. We use bulk GaN substrate, low dislocation. Then we work on gate insulator with ALD high K hafnium silicon oxide that I'll talk about, and then we basically do work on the barrier design to see if we can simplify this structure. Now, So going back to MOCVD, so for nitrogen polar, if by MOCVD we grow on-axis substrate, and this is something Stasia Keller from at UCSB has worked on, and she showed that basically these hexagons form when you grow on-axis. And what she basically developed was this growth on miscut substrate, and she showed that actually, with growing on 4 degrees miscut, we can get robust APS structure with no hexagonal helix. And but then the thing is that the transport is anisotropic. So parallel to these steps, the mobility is higher, and perpendicular to the steps, mobility is lower. But that's not a problem because we can basically align the devices such that the current transport is in aligned with where the electron mobility is higher. When I started like my as an independent PI, my focus on axis was that as we are trying to scale these devices and go to narrow, thinner channels, then the step height can become comparable with the channel thickness, and we don't know at that point, like if we can see, new challenges because of confinement and having 2D, 1D transport. And so that was one reason that we focused on axis substrates. But another thing that we had seen in nitrogen polar hens, even though like these great results and has been demonstrated, and better performance at higher frequencies have been achieved by nitrogen polar. One thing that we have seen is that in gallium polar, as we actually start applying a negative gate voltage and we are pinching off the channel, the mobility keeps increasing. And near pinch off, the mobility is actually very high, and then at very low charges, it drops a little bit. In nitrogen polar, we always saw an opposite trend. We saw that as soon as we start, applying negative voltage and going toward the pinch off, we see that mobility drops very significantly, and you see like around 2E12 near pinch off, the mobility is 500, even though we can get very high mobilities, at zero bias. And this matters because to operate, for high efficiency, we want to operate these amplifiers near in deep AB class, and that's basically why this low mobility near pinch off can hurt us. Now, keep this in mind, and the reason at the time, like when I was doing my PhD, we came up with just by simulations, and we what we propose is that there are these trap levels, shallow trap levels, at that interface where the two-dimensional electron gas forms, where this can basically really affect the mobility. And in nitrogen polar, because as we are applying a negative gate bias, we are pushing the wave function further closer to we are pushing it closer to the interface, then the mobility drops because of this basically ionized impurity scattering. It's not impurity, these are traps, but still like they are charged traps. And so they can significantly reduce the mobility. Now, coming back to what we focused on, MBE growth. And all of our efforts have been on nitrogen polar bulk GaN. And this is basically typical surface morphology that we get on our nitrogen polar GaN HEMT structures. And we have looked at different back barriers, aluminum nitride, gallium nitride, superlattice, AlGaN, indium aluminum nitride, and now as part of this new effort that we have through with EMI Commons through California Dreams, we are looking at alternative barriers like indium aluminum gallium nitride quaternaries, and aluminum scandium gallium nitride. and we have some preliminary results on those. So with the digital barrier, which basically means instead of having a 25% algan, what we have is um, a super lattice of aluminum nitride, gallium nitride, and then followed by a like thicker aluminum nitride interlayer and gallium nitride channel, gallium nitride channel. And we saw, this is the first time actually, we saw that in a nitrogen polar GaN APS structure, that as we are applying negative gate bias and we are reducing the charge density, the mobility not only didn't drop, but actually it increased, basically a similar trend to gallium polar that we had not seen before. And when we perform these measurements at room temperature, where actually can, because then we are eliminating optical phonon scattering and all that, then it's easier to see if like things like ionized impurity scattering or like interface roughness can affect the mobility. And we saw even at low temperature, as we go to lower charge densities, the mobility increased. So we were quite excited about this, and basically this was we showed record mobility of like around 2000 near pinch off. But then the question was, is if this is due to the barrier, that we have a digital barrier. So we worked on indium aluminum. We were interested to see how this behavior, if it changes, if the barrier is different. But the indium aluminum nitride, one issue with indium aluminum nitride is that this data is an MOCVD material. The oxygen, because it needs to be grown at lower temperature to incorporate indium, the oxygen incorporation is very high, which can, and oxygen is basically N-type, it's shallow donor in nitrides. And so this would cause issues in, devices. But when we started working on this, we developed this high temperature growth of indium aluminum nitride, which, as far as I know and I understand, is only possible by MBE, and it's only possible on nitrogen polar. On gallium polar, we haven't been able to do this. On nitrogen polar, we can actually grow as at the same temperature as we grow gallium nitride. And here we show that at 700, 750 C, we have indium aluminum nitride, 17%, 18%, which is lattice match to gallium nitride. And by SIMS also, then we confirmed that the oxygen impurity now, because we can grow at high temperature, the oxygen incorporation is very low, is in low 10 to the 17, which is similar to what we see in aluminum gallium nitride. Now, using this newly developed material in our group, we grew the APS structure with 200 nanometer of indium nitride, because we can do it, because it's lattice matched. And we saw the same thing, that actually the mobility didn't drop. It remains more or less the same, and we can get very high mobilities even near pinch off. And a very high charge at zero bias near to E13. Now with this being successful now, as I mentioned, through the Emmy Commons and the project that we have in California Dreams, we are trying to expand this to quaternaries doing indium aluminum gallium nitride, which would allow us to at the same time tune charge density and band gap. So we basically get an extra knob to play with. And we show that we can get different, these are just SIMS data, this is recent efforts, so we don't yet have HEMT structures with them, but we can now get different compositions by tuning the growth conditions, but growing at the same temperature as we grow gallium nitride at. And then another alternative barrier materials that we are working on through California Dreams is scandium aluminum gallium nitride. There has been a lot of interest in this new material system because basically it can provide larger discontinuity in the conduction band, and we can get very high charge densities with scandium nitride. And this has been on gallium polar GaN HEMS now. A lot of work has been done. When I was at Michigan, we did some preliminary work in collaboration with Professor Mees group on with using scandium nitride as barrier, but this is of course very like not optimized. It was grown on sapphire directly by MB, which means like dislocation is very high. And it was not optimized at all, but and so the mobilities are very poor, but still like we could show that we can have this scandium nitride as the barrier. Now in our new efforts here, we've been working on scandium nitride growth on both GaN template, and by that I mean it's GaN on sapphire and then GaN on silicon at the same time, and to kind of see if the growth is different, because there is also growing interest on GaN on silicon, and for other purposes like silicon can be removed easily the substrate for other applications. So and we can see that we have looked at growth temperature, fluxes, scandium to aluminum ratio. And one thing, like for instance, with temperature, we see that is interesting is that even though the scandium content doesn't change by temperature as we go from 400 C to 710, but as we change the growth temperature, the strain state of scandium nitride films is changing, and that's probably due to temperature dependent relaxation mechanisms and defect incorporation. Um, Another thing we have looked at is the fluxes basically, and what we have seen is that as we increase the scandium to aluminum ratio for smaller compositions, it changes linearly, but as we go to higher scandium, um, as we are trying to incorporate more scandium basically, and we increase the scandium to aluminum ratio, we see that the scandium incorporation doesn't go up linearly. It goes up, but it's not, linearly. Um, we have also then looked at nitrogen rich versus metal rich. And by that, what I mean is that in MBE, like the gallium nitride growth is always in metal rich, meaning that the gallium flux is more than the active nitrogen. But what we have seen is that for scandium nitride, when we grow in nitrogen rich, meaning the total metal flux is lower than the active nitrogen, we can get better surface morphology. And we have seen this both on GaN on sapphire and GaN on silicon, that when we do nitrogen polar, nitrogen rich, we get the peak from X-ray is better defined now, which shows the higher quality of the crystal. And as I mentioned earlier, the AFM also looks better. And this actually allows us, if we go to nitrogen rich, it allows us to push the scandium incorporation to higher, like for instance, when we grow metal rich, we see that for 27% scandium, we hardly get a peak, and that shows that the crystal quality is very poor. But for when we go to nitrogen rich, then we can get, very high quality peak from the X-ray. So that's so far the work we've been doing on scandium nitride. We've been studying the growth space for this material. And now our plan is to use this also as a barrier, both in gallium polar and nitrogen polar HEMS. Now, so far what I have talked about is that we demonstrated record high electron mobility near pinch off, and we have simplified the APS structure. Basically, you didn't see any of all those grading and silicon doping and all that. But while we were working on developing the material, at the same time we wanted to look at alternative dielectrics. because as I mentioned, MOCVD is a high temperature process. It is expensive and not widely available in nanofab facilities, and the dielectric constant is relatively low. It's about 7. And also, EMO devices are difficult because of the negative polarization charge that is neutralized by silicon nitride. So when we started, we were interested in developing dielectrics by ALD, which is a low temperature deposition technique, and it's widely available, and hafnium based dielectrics to see if we can push the basically get higher dielectric constants. And we were interested in also EMO devices, and we wanted to see if having an oxide dielectric basically make a difference, and we can do that easier. So initially we started with hafnium oxide. It was the pulsed IV measurements was okay, was good. The DC characteristics was good, but then we had low breakdown voltage on these devices. And so when we tried to increase the hafnium oxide thickness to see if we can increase the breakdown, what we saw is that we got a larger hysteresis with the thicker hafnium oxide, um, and so this was not acceptable. But then we had seen separately in other works that we had done where we did aluminum silicon oxide. We saw that. So one thing we had seen is that hafnium oxide starts crystallizing at a relatively low temperature, 400 C, which is the post deposition annealing temperature that we were using, and these um, basically um, grains could be a current leakage path. And we had seen separately that and this was actually in Mishra's group when they were doing aluminum silicon oxide, that by adding silicon oxide, they increased the crystallization temperature of aluminum oxide when they were doing by MOCVD. So that kind of motivated us to look at hafnium silicon oxide. And we were doing this on gallium oxide initially for another project. And we saw that actually hafnium silicon oxide remains amorphous even up to 800 C, 900 C. So this is what we started working on, and here, while we were developing the in-house material by MBE, we used a standard, MOCVD grown EPI available to develop the dielectric for our process. And in this study, we compared basically the standard MOCVD silicon nitride with ALD hafnium silicon oxide, and we saw that we can get breakdown voltages as high and a little bit better actually than silicon nitride. And that allowed us to basically we measured output power in these devices, and after 18 volts silicon nitride failed, and so we couldn't push it higher, but then hafnium silicon oxide survived, and we were able to push to higher powers. So that kind of showed that between MOCVD silicon nitride and ALD hafnium silicon oxide, ALD hafnium silicon oxide seems to be a promising dielectric, and it's deposited by ALD, and it's like low temperature deposition. So now, we have the dielectric, we have the in-house grown MBE material. So we combined these, and we looked at basically nitrogen polar GaN HEMS that are done on MBE grown material on bulk GaN with hafnium silicon oxide as dielectric. As you see in this EPI structure, it's a 30 nanometer GaN channel, and we basically use atomic layer etching ALE to form the deep recess edge, and so we didn't need the AlGaN cap layer. And then you see the barrier is very simple. It doesn't have any, it's just a 30 nanometer AlGaN followed by 2 nanometer of aluminum nitride just to suppress alloy scattering. There is no silicon doping, no grading, none of that. And we showed actually, comparable to the other, state-of-the-art devices at 10 gigahertz, we got output powers as high as 7.5 watt per millimeter, and efficiencies as high as 70%. And the the pulsed IV showed a little bit of current collapse, but nothing too bad. And again, I want to emphasize that this is with a simple EPI structure with no silicon doping, no grading, and nothing. And basically, we were able to get devices as good as people have demonstrated on other more complicated EPI structures. Now, the question going back is like, so why we don't need silicon doping and grading? That's something we are still, we are putting more focus on this to understand it, because the whole purpose of having this in nitrogen polar, our current understanding is that if we just do this Algan barrier, the valence band gets close to the Fermi level, and there are hole traps here that the untrapping of these hole traps lead to dispersion. And the reason for grading and silicon doping is to push down the valence band, and the trapping is eliminated. Now, the question is why we don't need that now in our MBE grown materials that are on bulk GaN. Did hole traps disappear, or is it that their density significantly reduced? And by the way, this has been attributed to nitrogen vacancies at these interfaces. And what the reason is it due to on-axis versus off-axis, or is it a low dislocation density, or a combination of both? We don't understand yet. And as I said, this is something we are studying. Now, the next and last part of my talk is on E-mode, which we know basically gallium nitride HEMTs are normally on devices inherently because of the two-dimensional electron gas that is formed. And normally of devices are desired for fail-safe operation condition, and also for single power supply system that are like desirable in phone mobiles, and just for gate drive circuit simplicity. Now, many different techniques have been used to demonstrate E-mode on gallium polar HEMTs, and one of the main one that is being used today is PGAN gate that has been robust and is used. On nitrogen polar specifically, there is this work that was done by Uttam and Manho in Umesh's group, where basically they had a aluminum nitride, 2 nanometer aluminum nitride on it, and using a self-align process, they removed the aluminum nitride everywhere and kept it only under the gate to show the E-mode performance. And they got very nice E-mode behavior with high 1.6 volt. But there was no power measurements published on these devices. So the approach we took was we used the deep recessed structure, basically same process that we have developed, which is nice. It's then it's more integration friendly, and then we have, and the only difference is basically here you need a deeper edge to make the gallium nitride channel thinner under the gate. But we are using the same simple barrier structure, and we are using the ALD hafnium silicon oxide as gate insulator that we developed in our group. And so using this simple processing, we for the first time actually demonstrated E-mode behavior on nitrogen polar GaN HEMT, but then we were also able to do power measurements, and we showed an output power density of 2.7 watt per millimeter with 46% PAE at 10 gigahertz on nitrogen polar GaN HEMTs. And this is basically different devices on the same epi with different gate length, showing that FD and Fmax are scaling with the gate length. So now again, the question is, we still need to like investigate this further. But what we think is happening is that um, basically the negative fixed interface charges on nitrogen polar GaN can lead to a positive shift in the threshold voltage, and that could be the reason that silicon nitride, which actually the work by Tanmay and others in Umesh's group has shown that neutralizes polarization charge. So that may be the reason we can actually get, E-mode performance by using hafnium silicon oxide. But again, this is the work that now we are focusing to better understand what's happening at the interface. That's all I have, and these are the basically people who do the work, all the work in my group, and I thank you for your attention, and I'll be happy to answer questions.
Thank you. Thank you very much. That was a great talk, and we'll look for questions in the chat. Is that one picture at Michigan and one picture at UCLA?
Yeah, actually, this one was at Michigan. Two of my students were graduating, Chochen and Irfan, and this is actually at Goleta Beach at UCSB.
Okay, so you've already got UCSB covered.
Yeah.
Any questions? If we don't have any questions, I guess you were exceptionally clear. We had a good turnout today, especially for the summer. We have a couple of slides to show about future seminars and our seminar series. There's still time to sneak in a question in the chat or Q&A. Oh, just one second. There is a question from Erdem. Erdem, if you want to come off of mute, I can let you ask your question verbally. But if you don't
Yes,
come off mute, it
sure.
sounds like you're going to. Okay,
Can
go
you hear
ahead.
me?
Yep.
Okay, so yeah, the chat is disabled, but the Q&A works. So Elahi, this is a very nice talk. Thank you very much for sharing all this information with us. One of the things that I will potentially get a question on if I try to do something like ALE on any semiconductor where in this type of etch is the like how do you make sure you stop on the same location each time you do this etch? Or does it even matter as far as the device goes? Maybe it's a parameter that is not contributing to uniformity. Can you comment on that for the audience?
Yeah, the good thing is we are at university, so we don't, non-uniformity is a good thing for us. But that's a good point, and we are so to the short answer is like that needs every time before running the device we do calibrations and make sure that we get the same edge. But we do see non-uniformity a little bit from we are trying to understand the pattern size, like for instance, the larger patterns versus the smaller patterns. There is some variation, but we haven't yet really studied because these are like nitrogen polar GaN devices. They are nitrogen polar bulk, so they are expensive. So we haven't really worked on, large wafers and see how uniformity is and all that. Yeah. So
Would you be able to do a selective etch, for example, if you did have a Algan in
this ALEH
center
by
basically?
itself is not selective. No.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for the questions, Erdem. There's also, and I heard Erdem say that the chat is not working. So if you have a question, please put it in the Q&A. window. We also have a comment from H.A. Zamani. I'm sorry, I don't know the full name, just the username here, but thank you for the talks, which I second. And an anonymous attendee who asks if the recording is available to review again. The recording should be on YouTube not long after this talk, unless we are disallowed from putting it up, but we normally put all of our talks up there. So please go to our California Dreams YouTube site and watch this and other recordings of our seminars. And we have another technical question that I'm going to see if we can get asked verbally. Zamani, you should be able to talk if you'd like to, and if you don't, I'm happy to read your question from the chat.
So the question is there any attempts for optimization of dimensions of layers, specifically substrate, and can it be extended to other geometrical arrangement to achieve higher properties? I'm not sure what you mean by the substrate because we use GAN substrate. The optimization of layers, yes, we have been working on, for instance, looking at the carbon dope layer that is important to get insulate and reduce the and suppress the buffer leakage, or the UID GAN. Looking at basically the back barrier being indium aluminum gallium nitride or AlGaN or aluminum scandium gallium nitride, looking at the barrier thickness itself and also their composition and how they affect the charge density, mobility, and all that. Yes, all that is in progress. But if I didn't answer your question about substrate, please clarify that I didn't understand. The question is ALE necessary? Can you use other techniques? This is what we developed and we are using. Is it necessary? No. Like in Umesh's group, there are other techniques that they use to form the deep recess. We've been using ALE.
Thank you for those. And Zamani, you're welcome to come off mute if you'd like to. You got a clear response. Okay, so that's done. While we're waiting to see if there are other questions, I'll point you again to the QR code on the screen. QR code is for registration for future seminars, and I think that will also take you to the YouTube channel where you can get recordings. And if not, please feel free to contact us. If you're here, you must have some way to contact us. So please reach out if you have any trouble finding the recordings. But we're on YouTube, California Dreams. And then Peter, if you could go to the next slide. There should be a schedule of our upcoming talks. Next week, we have Andrea Bells from USC, who's going to talk about our workforce development program that we're using, that we are leading from California Dreams. The following week, we have Shu-Chen Zhu from UCSD. We have a week off for Labor Day, and then Florian Haro from Pseudolithic. And so we are looking forward to that. Back to the Santa Barbara area in September. If there aren't any further questions, we will thank Elahe one more time. It was a great seminar. We are glad that we had such a good turnout on an August Friday afternoon. And thanks, Elahe, and everybody who attended.
Thank you. Thank you for the.
Thank you.